Hey everybody, it's Dr. Greg Barnes here in Raleigh, North Carolina at my clinic, Greenway Health Center. And today what I want to talk to you about is thyroid health. How to improve it. If you have a condition like hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's or suspect that you do, really give you some answers or some solutions on how to improve it and really even reverse it in many cases. Big thing about thyroid and why I wanted to do this video is that really it's become an epidemic in this country for people that have problems with it, especially women, between the ages of 30 and 60. Men have it as well, but really we're beginning to see it with women in that age group. And what will happen is that women, again, sometimes maybe 40, 50 years old, will come into my office. They'll be complaining about the fact that they're exercising like crazy, they're eating like a bird, or they're eating, gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, whatever it is, and they just find that they're not losing the weight. They're sluggish and they're tired despite doing, green juices and organic coffee and whatever the case may be. And they're not seeing the scale moving and they're not seeing their energy come up no matter what they try. And so what will happen is then people will go on to WebMD or Dr. Google, right? And they'll enter in, do I have a thyroid problem? And they'll see all the signs and symptoms relating to a low-functioning thyroid, aka hypothyroid, and say, oh, yep, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one. So you'll be like, perfect, I know exactly what I need to do. So you'll go to your doctor, you'll tell your doctor what's going on. They'll probably agree with you, say, yep, sounds like you might have that. Then they'll run blood work, and lo and behold, you get the blood work back and you find out that you don't have a thyroid problem. So then now you're back to square one, wondering what the heck is wrong with you. And you begin to think, well, maybe this is the way that my health is going to be for the rest of my life. So here's the reality. 27 million people in this country right now, in the United States, have a thyroid problem and it is undiagnosed. That's almost 10% of the population. That's an insane amount of people that are even watching this, that you have a diseased thyroid and you don't even know it. 90% of women, and this is suspected by a lot of top medical experts, it's suspected that 90% of women have some form of a thyroid problem. You may not have a thyroid disease, but you have something that we would call subclinical hypothyroidism. And what that means is that your levels of your thyroid test on the normal range or in the ranges that your medical doctor would be happy with. However, your body is not functioning the way that it's supposed to, so you really have it just below the threshold of normal. So you'll go to your doctor, and what they'll run is, and correct me, if this sounds normal, familiar here, is they're going to run a panel that's going to include TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, all right, and T4, which is the active form of form of thyroid hormone. That's what they run. And then they run these and they come back within the normal range and they say you don't have a thyroid problem. However, when properly testing the thyroid, there's over 10 variables that really need to be looked at. There's T3, there's free T3, free T4, there's reverse T3, there's something called TPO or TPA, and those two measurements are for the autoimmune version of hypothyroidism called Hashimoto's. There's also thyroid thyroid binding globulin 2. So there's so much more to it. So when you're only testing one small variable, there's no way you can get the full picture. And the problem is that TSH, which is considered the gold standard for thyroid disease, there has not been one study showing that having a normal level of TSH equates to feeling good or feeling normal. Now, why then do they test for these two variables right here and not do the other ones is that there's a medication or medications that can improve or bump up TSH and T4. You might have heard of them. They're called Synthroid, or the generic version is called levothyroxine, or the pig glandular version of that is called Armour Thyroid, okay? So the thought process is, well, if we have a drug for it, we can test it, but if we don't have a drug for it, then what's the point of it anyways, okay? And that also goes along with those of you that have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism but never been tested for Hashimoto's or not. The same thing, there's no different drug if you have the autoimmune version, Hashimoto's, so they would not test for that unless you have a smart doctor or really in-depth endocrinologist. But it's major when it comes to being able to improve your thyroid, to know that factor right there. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through how this process works in your body and what you can do to help it. So all hormones, every single one, start in your brain. So estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, every single cascade, or you can think of assembly line in your body that makes hormones, starts in your brain. So if you have a brain problem, all right, sorry, there ain't much helping you. Actually, I'm just kidding. We can help you, but that's a whole nother set of problems. Usually, if you have a problem up in here, it's things like heavy metals and other toxins that will cause that. So if that is your problem is in here, well, then we have a lot of work to do, and that's a whole specific. But your brain, and there's two parts of your brain. One's called the hypothalamus. The other is part the pituitary gland. That will secrete what's called TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. TSH talks to your thyroid and says, hey, thyroid, you need to make hormone for us because our body needs it, all right? The cells need it, and that may be for any other, any of the cells in your body based on the demand. So your thyroid, okay, hears that signal TSH and makes what's called T4, which again is the inactive version of thyroid gland. So inactive means it can't do anything in your body until it's been activated. So T4 gets brought via the blood, okay, into either the liver or the muscle, all right, to get converted into something called T3, which is now the active form of thyroid. So why is this significant, okay? So typically, and I'm going to hone in mainly on the liver right here, is that if you have a low level of T3, okay, but you have a normal level of T4, we know there's a conversion problem happening inside of your body. But because most people don't get their T3 levels checked, we'll never be able to determine the cause. So again, normal T4, low T3, then we know there's a conversion problem in your liver. It means that is the place we need to focus on to actually help your thyroid. Does that make sense? So we have to, again, get down to the cause of the problem. Now, by the way, one of the things that helps your body make T4 is something called iodine. Most people are aware of iodized salt, or the importance of iodine in your diet for helping your thyroid work properly, or necessity of function. But I find clinically, most people are deficient, if not severely deficient, in iodine. And so taking an iodine supplement like potassium iodide with selenium, needs to have selenium in it for proper absorption, typically does wonders for people and their energy, their metabolism. It's great for breast health, it's great for brain health, but I could do a whole other video on that, okay? So iodine, huge for thyroid health. So once the T4, now if we go back to our pathway, once our T4 gets converted in your liver, okay, remember like I said, it gets converted into T3. This is now the active form of thyroid, okay, thyroid hormone. That's going to again then get brought via the blood to whatever cell is needed. This is a little cell right here, and of course this is to scale, anatomically to scale, right? And it's going to bind to a receptor site. A receptor site's kind of like a little keyhole on the cell. In order for once it connects to that, it opens it up and allows the hormone to go in, okay? But it has to bind to the receptor first. So once it does that, T3 goes into the cell, all right? It turns on genes. Everybody's happy, you feel good, your energy is good, your metabolism is good, your digestion is good, your hair's not getting thinner, your skin's not getting dry, your nails aren't getting brittle. Those are all thyroid problems, by the way. Even if the outer third of your eyebrows are getting worn out or fading or even not existent growth hair, that's all thyroid problems. Everything works good when that happens. All right, now let's go through a couple of scenarios as to how you could have normal blood work, normal according to these two factors right here, and still feel like crap, have crappy energy, crappy metabolism. So in the case of stress, remember your body is extremely smart. It always does the right thing at the right time for the right reason, okay? So when you experience stress, it's going to secrete something called cortisol from your adrenal glands, okay? And stress may be, you got a lot going on, you have a busy job, you have a busy life, you may have had a death in the family. Usually it's chronic stress, not acute stress, okay? So Things like, the day-to-day action. It's always having the answer, being a slave to your cell phone, slave to your email, waking up in the middle of the night, taking care of kids, whatever the case may be. It's that chronic accumulation of stress that creates this problem I'm going to go through. So what will happen is T4 is going to get shunted down a different pathway and get converted into something called reverse T3. Okay? Now again, remember I said your body is smart. The reason why it does that is that when your body is perceiving stress, it never knows when it's going to need to fight or flight. Okay, if you've ever heard of that terminology before, fight or flight. So because of that, it's going to conserve energy and essentially keep a store of energy available in case it needs to get out of here, get out of danger, get out of problems. Okay, again, it's smart. But the consequence of that is that when this reverse T3 is created, it will actually bind to the same places that T3 binds to, because if it gets there first, well then T3, all right, can't bind and connect to the cell, therefore it can't enter the cell, use energy, give you energy, and have proper. So these people feel like crap. Again, usually we find a stressful lifestyle with that. It's not necessarily just as easy as, realistic to say, oh, well, let's just quit everything that you're doing that creates stress right now. The key is to support your body and create and support the stress response, okay? So your body stays in a happy, healthy state and doesn't create this alternative pathway. Again, smart that your body's doing that, but it's not good when we live in the 21st century here and need to be able to get things done. But it's doing it to conserve energy. That's one of the common pathways that I see. So when we see people, when we do a proper thyroid panel and we test something like reverse T3, we can see that that's extremely elevated. And because many people that I've tested actually have hypothyroidism and they don't even know it because the TSH and T4 is normal. And of course it would be, because TSH is normal, T4 is normal, but it's getting converted away. The problem is then they have high RT3, and then they have low T3 here, again, meaning they have hypothyroidism, they don't feel good, poor energy, slow metabolism. Another scenario that I see is people living in a modern, going back to our modern American lifestyle here, is that we live in a state of chronic inflammation. From the foods that we eat, from the environment that we're in, the toxins that we're surrounded by, things that we put on our body and in our body create systemic and chronic inflammation. And yes, you can think of inflammation like a shoulder pain, achy shoulder, achy elbow, wrists, knees, ankles, even spine, right? That's inflammation. But the important part that we want to hone in on for this purposes is something called cellular inflammation, cell inflammation, all right? And what happens is that if you go back to the cell here, and we have these receptors, and hopefully this still makes sense as you can see this here. Inflammation, you can think of swelling. You sprain your ankle, it gets puffy, it gets red, it gets swollen, it doesn't move very much, okay? And it just doesn't function the way that it's supposed to. Well, the same thing will happen to cells. Your cells are made up of something called a lipid bilayer, which means it's 2 layers of fat, all right? It's very special, it's very amazing. That cell wall, or the lipid bilayer, becomes inflamed, all right, due to chronic systemic inflammation. So I'm going to do this right here. So think of a swollen, poor functioning, non-operating or not normal functioning cell. So what happens with that inflammation is that if you remember those receptor sites, those keys that I was talking about, they essentially get swelled over or they get damaged to the point where T3 now is even normal in your body. You have normal TSH, normal T4, normal T3, but it can't get into the cell. Think about somebody has just blasted the door and there's no keyhole even there anymore, or no place to put your key because it's so damaged. Somebody tried to pick the lock, they jam their thing in there, it now can't get in. So what happens to these people? Normal blood levels. Doctor says you're fine, you still feel like crap, okay? So the 3 things that cause cell inflammation are going to be grains and sugars, okay? And yes, even natural sugars will do this, all right? Don't believe everything you say, oh, just because something is natural, it's somehow okay for you. I mean, uranium is natural, it exists in the earth, but that will, is what they use for atomic bombs, and it will give you cancer in a short amount of time. Same thing, mercury is a naturally occurring element. You get that inside your body, it's going to fry your nervous system, okay? Cocaine is natural, but if you do, use it the wrong way, it's going to cause you an overdose and cause you to die. So just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good. Our bodies were not designed to have the amount of sugar that we're exposed to. But grains, that's number one, and sugars, number two. So you got to cut out all the grains, even organic and whole grains and healthy and sprouted. They will destroy your body, destroy your metabolism, and really cause rampant inflammation throughout your brain and throughout your body. And then start reducing and cutting down the sugars. Processed sugars, 100%. Natural sugars, you got to minimize as much as possible. Personally, my wife and I, we use stevia as a sweetener because that's from an herb and it's safe, it's natural. It doesn't raise your blood sugar, it doesn't create this inflammatory response inside of your body. Number two is going to be bad fats, or another one way we call that is man fats. So natural occurring fats like coconut oil, olive oil, butter, saturated fat from animal products, right? Those would all be natural fats, or what we could also call God fats, fats that God created. Those are all extremely beneficial for the body. But bad fats would be things like fats that you find in packaged foods, like hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, things like safflower and sunflower oils, rapeseed oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, other oils that have been heated too much. So if you heat butter and olive oil too hot and it begins to brown or smoke, that becomes rancid. So that would actually then fall into a bad fat, okay? But remember, like I said, your cells are made up of fat. So if you're putting bad building blocks inside of you, your body is gonna use those resources to make crappy cells. If you have crappy cells, you feel like crap and your health sucks, okay? So bad fats are number two. Number three is going to be toxins, okay? So again, personal care products, heavy metals, things from like vaccines, flu shots, inherited down from generation. If you grew up in a house with lead paint or around a lot of leaded gas or certain toys, black hair dye has lead inside of it. All these toxins, air fresheners, I could go on and on. I have a whole seminar on that. But toxins absolutely cause cellular and systemic inflammation in your body. And one of the biggest areas toxins affect is your hormonal system and also your brain. So this creates what's called brain inflammation. Again, you go back and you have a problem at the very start, and you can see why you're in trouble. So if you have this problem right here, you make these three steps starting to reduce toxins. You got to switch out your bad and man-made fats for God or natural fats, okay? And you need to do a lot of them, so a lot of good fats. And you got to eliminate all grains and dramatically decrease all sugars, and even eliminate if possible, but at least start making progress towards doing that. So I hope that was helpful. I'll post some helpful links in the comments below, like what lab tests to request from your doctor in order to get that done. We run ours through Labcorp or Genova or Metametrics. And it costs around $200, $300, $400 if you do the super in-depth one. So it's really not that expensive out of pocket if you really want to know what's going on with your thyroid. We can test that through my office if you do that. I'll also post links to the type of iodine and selenium that I take. And please, by all means, post any questions below, especially about any of this here on thyroid, or you can find more on my website, www.drgregbarnes.com. While you're at it, you can go ahead and subscribe to me on YouTube, like me on Facebook, do all that good stuff as well so we can stay in touch. And I look forward to continuing to change and transform your guys' lives. Peace out.